and share your screen.
All right. Let me. This is always the part when things break down. The demo gods break in. Let's see here. So let me share out my screen. If you want to share, yes, I do. Let's see. All right. Can everybody see trees?
Yep. You know, good.
All right. There we go. Let me share out my screen here. Okay. So, as Anthony mentioned, my name is Damon Sanchez. I'm the user experience architect at Concurrency. Concurrency is a technology company in the Milwaukee area, Chicago, and Minneapolis area. I have an undergraduate degree from the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design. I am working towards my master's degree in psychology of human factors. As Anthony mentioned, I'm a member of the Technology Advisory Board at MSOE, and I have 18 years of experience managing creative and development teams. And before COVID hit, I actually spoke around the country, but now everything is sort of remote. So it's, this is timely that we're doing this through Teams right now. So super excited to be here to present the material to everybody on the call today, because it's so relevant. Like Anthony mentioned, I mean, this is the times that we live in right now, where you've got companies spending money to try to reconnect and re-engage elements of their business, trying to understand their employees better, because the workforce has changed, and so of a lot of the material that we're going to go over today, it's so relevant. And so a quick kind of a snapshot of the agenda. We're going to talk about the future, and we're going to talk about the current landscape of things, and then we're going to talk about human-centered process, human-centered design, and engagement methods and artifacts of HCD. And we're going to talk about why HCD is important for Power Platforms. And then we'll sort of close this out with questions and things like that. So without further ado, we're going to see how this works again. I've got a video, and this video was created by Microsoft. And it was created in 2011, which is interesting, right? It's 2021. And so this is to kind of get the creative ideas going, and to kind of to talk about, it speaks to a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to hit play, and hopefully the audio works. Can you hear audio? Steve, Anthony, can we hear audio?
No, not yet.
Not yet?
If there's supposed to be audio, it's probably not going to play through here.
Okay, well, that's really great music, but nonetheless, the video and the content is what's important. This actually works pretty good. We're going to ad-lib here. I can talk through the material while the audio isn't working in the video, but what you're seeing is this futuristic scene of someone scuba diving through a field of kelp in the ocean, and the video from their feed is going directly into a classroom. There's transcendental music playing right now, and you've got kids on tablet. Yeah.
Could you just mute maybe the audio on your side? I think it's cutting out some of your voice.
Here, hang on.
Yep, that's clear now. It's clear. Thank you.
But now, is that better? We're getting feedback there?
Yep, now you're good. Thank you.
Okay, so anyways, you saw a futuristic scene, scuba diver. The video feed from her camera was showing classrooms, some really great footage. Now you're seeing a woman at a table at a restaurant in the middle of the rainforest, and she's got this like mylar rubbery interactive tablet playing. And I wanted everybody to take note of the devices that she has on the screen, right? This is 2011. This is the hockey puck. If you can see my video feed, this is the hockey puck that they had for the Surface Dial. Look at that. Hockey puck. You've got a Surface Pen. Take a look at the interface that she's using. This is this rubbery mylar surface, but the interface is, giving her what she needs. She's clicking on it. She's doing, these different things. She's interacting with the content, and whatnot. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit to the next piece of video here. And so here we have a woman. Look at her ear. Again, 2011 looks a lot like the Microsoft Surface earbuds, right? And again, right, 2011. So here she's interacting with some glass. She's clicking on something. She's got some tasks. Look at the data visualization, you know, of the what she's working on. She's interacting with a wall. You know, again, Microsoft, you know, showing what they thought the future would look like in 2020, right? We've got data feeds happening. She's using a tablet. She's sitting down, she's interacting with her voice, and now she's looking at some content that the scuba diver Kat had taken. So here we have a scene in the city. I'll fast forward again to kind of go into the future a little bit more into the video. Okay, here we go. Here we have a workplace, quote unquote, in the future. What this was 2011, and look at here we have a team of individuals working on a smart board, you know, touching and interacting, drawing on top of it, a tablet in the hand with some 3D interface going and stuff like that. So as you can see, the point of this to show everybody this video was to show how in 2011 this was something that Microsoft had envisioned for, you know, the future, right, of 2020 in 2020. So when we go fast forward from here, this is some imagery that, you know, we've seen on the Microsoft Fluent Design website, and you can kind of see there's different screen sizes, different textual, contextual colors and sort of textures and things like that, and you're seeing collective experiences played out on a tablet to the far right. And this is such a great photo, and it keys off a lot of the conversations that are about to take place. So when we think of the current dimensional landscape of experiences, you know, you've got 3 dimensions all the way on the right hand side, and you've got 0 dimensions on the left hand side. And everybody that knows me, you'll notice this slide a lot because I use it a lot, because it's telling of, you know, of where we're at right now. You know, when we think about, you know, building an application for somebody, when we think about building a project for somebody, chances are, from an experiential standpoint, it's going to be rendered out through these dimensions, right? It's either, you know, whether you're big into 3D or augmented reality, you might not have gotten there yet. But if you think back to that video that you just saw, that sort of augmented reality experience, that being submerged in an experience, that's coming. It might not be here just yet. But think about that video was from 2011. We're now in 2022. So some of that stuff might be right around the corner, but nonetheless, the 2-dimensional space is where we have been playing for the last 2 decades, right? Whether it's our watches, whether it's, you know, the earbuds that we have in our ears, you know, or, you know, in the 0-dimensional space, or just the flat screens, or like meeting rooms and stuff like that. That's what we've got. And the truth in this is that no matter what it's being executed in, it has to be experienced, right? We're hearing experience a lot in the industry, right? Employee experience, learning experience, customer experience, user experience, right? And there's a reason for that. And it's because from an experiential level, we know that we have to reach out and connect with our users, with our patrons. So when we think about all these different experiences, it begins by trying to understand, well, where do we start? And when we think about customer experiences, one of the interesting aspects about what is a customer experience is you know, here's the definition from Margaret Rousey. It's customer experience, also called consumer experiences, is the perception a patron has after engaging with a company's brand, products, or services. So if you think about that, right, there was no interaction from an interface level. There was no user experience. This is a perception a patron has. Interesting, right? So what is a patron? And, you know, and it's engaging with a company's brands, products, or services. When we think about, you know, well, if that's a patron and that's CX, then what's UX? And here's the definition of this. So user experience encompasses all aspects of an end user's interactions with a company's services and products. Sounds kind of familiar, right? But in fact, it's just a little bit different. So when we put these side by side, we've got an end user's perception of an interaction with a company's products and services, an end user's perception, and a patron's perception after engaging with a company's brand or products and services. So they're different, but in some cases, they're after some of the same types of mechanics. So when you look at how CX and UX, these two experiential models and how they coincide and converge together, at first glance, they may appear to be, they may appear to fit together like this, right? Where, they're blending together. But it's actually more like this. So CX and UX actually fit in this hierarchical structure, with that sort of outer experiential platform being a brand, and at the outermost layer, and then inside of that is a customer experience, and then inside of that is a user experience. So in this context, you can imagine some of the most well-known entities in the world, right? Close your eyes and think about when you think about a brand, and what that feeling you get, that aspirational context of that brand. You think of the Nikes of the world, right? What do they mean? What's the icon? What's the logos? What are the brand messaging? What is all of it saying? And then when you think about that, that's what a brand is. And then inside of that is a customer's experience. And so when you really think about this from a patron or end user perspective, a customer experience can be a conversation that you're having with somebody. It can be, it can be a whole host of things. But from an interaction standpoint, touching an interface, that's when you get to a user experience. Why is this relevant? Well, it's relevant because when we think of applications, a lot of times we'll have projects where they start at that inner sphere with an expectation of being successful, when in fact a lot of the other shell around the outsides isn't there. So to show this in action and to prove out how this would work, put together like a collection of images from Starbucks. I mean, at this point, Starbucks is almost like the Andy Warhol, Marilyn Monroe Campbell soup can. I mean, everybody has sort of at least some kind of an experience with Starbucks. But on the left-hand side, you've got in-store signage, right? We're not even used to seeing this anymore because we haven't been able to go in stores lately. But you've got signage on the left talking about an app that somebody could use to potentially make their experience with Starbucks better. Hey, if you don't like sitting in line in the store, use this app and order your coffee. Okay, so they use the app, and then maybe there's some time between when they saw the sign and they use the app. And now on the far right side, they're coming into the store and they're they're picking up their coffee. So the thought experiment here is, in this journey that we're showing, is how is a user different from a patron? Okay, so think about everything that we just talked about, and then and then ask yourself, well, if Starbucks had a problem in their customer's experience, what was it? How would you go about trying to figure out what it was in this journey that we have above, what it would be? So, in this case, was it the awareness of the product or the service? Did the app work in a timely fashion? Did they order it and then did it freeze up? Did it not take their payment? Was the tonality of the app incorrect? Did it not really address Starbucks brand? Was the barista who handed the coffee to the patron or the user a little bit off? Were they grouchy that day, or did they not get their name right? Was the patron or the user or was the coffee even good, right? Was it cold? So the point here is that there is no successful way to create a system or make the system better without knowing the people inherent in the system. So this is a battle cry for all the human factors psychologists out there, where it's reduce human error, increase productivity, enhance the system and comfort with a specific focus on the interaction between a human with the thing or interest, right? So that's a battle cry of a human factors psychologist. But you look at this, customer, consumer, end user, patron, employee, stakeholder, client, actor, whatever we want to call this, this aspect of the people in the system, really saying, what is it to be human? We are human, right? So if we know that we have to connect with people on a human level, how do we do this? And so this is really where the payoff of this entire session starts to come to life. So the human-centered process. In this case, we understand, ideate, validate, and build. Now, this isn't new. This isn't something that I made up, or that concurrency made up. This is something, these are tried, tested, and true phases of human-centered design thinking. This is this idea. And why is this popular right now? This makes sense right now because like we talked about in the beginning of the session, companies right now are trying to figure out how to reconnect with their employees. You're hearing employee experience a lot, field experience, user experience, customer experience. And it's because companies are trying to, from an empathetical standpoint, understand their employees again. That might be remote, or they might be, something has changed now in the workforce and they need to reconnect. So understand, ideate. In this case, it's like, okay, now that we know who we're talking about, how do we help them? What could we do to make this situation better? And so we have ideate, and then we have validate. So we've gone through an understand phase. We've tried to ideate on what it is that we're what we think we want to do, and then we're going to validate it. Is this even going to work? How do we test this before we go about building it? And when we say build at the end, this could be a variety of things. This could be building the documentation. This could be building the actual thing itself. And so when we look at these phases in human-centered process and human-centered design, here are a few things, that methods inside of this process that are, again, tried, tested, and true ways to engage with the human being on the other side of the technology that you're trying to engage with. We have things like, we've got interviews. Oh, hey, hang on. I am advancing the slide deck. All I wanted to do is draw it. There we go. You've got things like interviews, empathy maps, personas, journeys, surveys. Now, obviously, depending on the size of the project, depending on the type of project, you might not have to check all these boxes. Again, time consuming. You have to pick and choose what it is that you want to work on. But ultimately, though, if you're trying to understand, you're trying to ideate, and you're trying to validate and build, you want to at least be able to work through some of these different methods within a human-centered process. So this is where I get a chance to kind of show everybody that's on the session right now some of what these engagement methods look like. So when we think about understand, some of the elements that you might want to do in an understand phase is surveys, end user interviews, personas, journeys. Here's some examples of doing some survey work. You think to yourself, like, well, okay, what am I seeing? Well, you're seeing content from an end user interview where, as a facilitator, I need to ... And in this case, somebody would write in, well, I slides into a whiteboard. So, I want to collaborate. And so what we're doing is each one of these things is somebody else's different statement. And we're going through and we're saying, you know what, this person said whiteboard. This person said whiteboard. This person said stickies. This person said collaboration. Oh, look, there is something there, right? We have 4 or 5 people, all of which said that they would like to collaborate more. On the left-hand side, you're seeing, just a quick snapshot of how many people took a survey. And, here we're seeing 37% of the survey data that went out. The enterprise technology users were big survey turnouts. This is a whole bunch of different survey material that we pasted all into one place. And here it is again. But you think about, why surveys? Well, it's an easy way to ask a lot of questions, and it's to a large group of people, and it's cost effective. Now, it's not the sole component of the data that you'd like to get back, but it is a great way to validate what you're hearing in interviews. And so, if you interview a group of 10 people, a lot of times what we'll find is, you'll have stakeholders that are representing larger groups of people. Well, is it cost effective for each one of those stakeholders to go and ask every single person at a plant what they think? Probably not individually, but they could send out a survey to the entire plant and then easily compile the data together, whereas it would take people weeks to do something like that. So it's a cost-effective way to do it. Once we've compiled a lot of stuff into survey data and we've had interviews, we've had stakeholder interviews, maybe have done some empathy interviews, a great next step is user personas. So these next couple slides are some examples of user personas. In this case, we've got an office worker, content consumer, and they are remote or they're on site. Here's some characteristics about them. Here's some perception, concepts about them, current problems, and some behaviors on the right-hand side, along with some frequently used apps. A core component of wanting to do personas is generally you want to do three. You want to do a primary, secondary, and tertiary. And the groups, you'd want to limit them to a certain amount of people. You obviously, to say I have a persona group of 100,000 people is a bit much, right? To say you have a persona group of a couple hundred, okay, well, it's obviously a group, but the point is that what you're really after in doing persona groups and personas like this, we call these a macro persona, where it's a group of people instead of an individual person. But the idea is you're looking for differences in the wants and needs and desires and behaviors of the different groups with the intent to figure out, well, what in my project do I need to make sure that I tailor to these different groups? And then here's a third group. So, with this particular client, this was the aha moment, because we realized that there was a big difference between these two, the primary and secondary, and then the tertiary group. It's a big difference between the two, and so this was the aha moment. Give us a survey, a summary of those personas, and we pitch it back out to a client. Again, really important that you're kind of summarizing this information so you can give this back out. So when you look at, if we go back, time check. When we go back to the process, this was in the understand phase, right? So what did we do to try to understand who it is that we were talking about, the human in the technology? Now we think about ideate. Well, what would that look like? In this case, here are some examples of ideating with an open card sort. In this case, an open card sort was something that was incredibly valuable when we could meet in person, right? You'd hand somebody a Post-it note, a stack of Post-it notes, and let them write on those Post-it notes what their ideas were, and then you'd group the colors in the different ideas. And so you'd have a group of 8 people, and you're like, you know what, we're going to have an open ideation session. You write whatever it is that you want to within these certain categories. In this case, interaction, communication, search and find, app model launcher, bookmarks, and news. And I want you to tell me everything that you can possibly tell me about these particular groups. And so the people would go around and do this. Now, this is obviously something that's really hard to do remotely nowadays, but there are tools. In this case, what you're seeing on screen is a tool called Mural that you could use to your advantage. Microsoft Whiteboard has this functionality in it as well. Again, this is a way to engage with people, right? I mean, it really comes down to an engagement model, right? How do I engage with somebody? Do I want to do this with a spreadsheet? Do I want to do this with an Excel file? Do I want to do this with a Word document as they're sort of talking to me? Or do I want to really engage with them and sort of, keep their attention and work with them? It's hard to tell somebody about, your emotional status about something when, they're looking at a spreadsheet online. It's very, if you will, but whereas this is very colorful. Some more examples of ideating is low fidelity sketching. I mean, goodness, I mean, everybody can, even, you think about just picking up a pencil and sketching. You think about picking up a marker and drawing on a marker board. It's a very fluid way to ideate on something. In this case, you're seeing on screen is a way that you can ideate and then also do a closed card sort. So in this case, all of the cards were already there. Instead of having people make the cards, we're having them use the cards that are already there. And in this case, we're showing them sketches on the right-hand side, and we're having them take the cards out and place them in the UI that most that they feel most attached to, that would solve their problems. And in this case, they're sort of lifting these out and they're placing them over here. Great exercise to do with a small and large group of people, and it's very effective. In this case here, we're saying, hey, this is what we found. Like, this is what we heard. We have these things, and here's what you told us, and this is what the most well-loved low fidelity UI pattern that we feel that everybody in the group, and so there was group consensus here. So why would we do this, right? When we go back and, if we do a reset here for the need for wanting to engage at this level with our people, with humans in a human-centered process, why would we limit the specific needs and why UI patterns? This is when we start to actually bridge the gap of why this is incredibly important to Power Apps. Because, and here I put the slide in here to make it look like I was really smart, but we do this because in 1954, a psychologist named Paul Fitts came up with an equation and a theory, which essentially goes like this: the larger UI is, the longer, or the bigger a UI is, the longer it takes my pointer to get from one button to the next, or from one point of interaction to the next. The more I pack into an interface, the closer my pointer gets to another button. Now, you might think that that would be good, but what it also finds is that what Paul Fitts also found was that the closer buttons are together, the more I pack interface into a smaller space, the closer that I can get to the buttons that I need to get to, the more error actually happens, because now I don't have as much time to get to different elements. So when you think about this, that was my definition of Fitts law. But this equation, and this is going to be great, because when you see interfaces like this is FileMaker Server 18, FileMaker Pro. Everybody, if you've been doing this as long as I have, everybody remembers the days of FileMaker Pro. And this was the type of stuff that you were looking at. There was so much stuff in the screen. And the reason was because the application creators weren't able to specifically tailor to individual needs in a way that people could get to things that they wanted to do in the application without other people seeing too much information. And so in the byproduct was every single bit of information that was available was pushed into the interface itself. And now every single user that logs in sees everything that everybody else needs to do, even if there was no chance of them ever actually using that piece of the interface. So now when you start to think about how this works with Power Apps and building applications, I've got a quick gallery of some things. And so this was a very old tool for FileMaker Pro, but this is CRM. This is Dynamics 365, and you can kind of see there's a lot of stuff going on here, right? Where do I start? What do I do? And the cognitive processing of this document is very high, right? There's a lot of stuff in here. Fitts law. Whereas if I would have connected with users, understood what personas needed, what information, maybe I could have simplified this a lot more. So this is one where I just went online, grabbed a couple things off of online, but you can kind of see there's a lot of stuff going on here, right? Everybody's seen a Power BI report like this. Everybody's seen data reports like this, but in turn, what you're seeing is the equation that I put on screen. How much information is too much information to pack into an interface? Now, the interesting thing about this is this doesn't mean that this interface doesn't work. This interface still functions, but the processing, the cognitive processing of this document is high. There's also probably too many things to take in at one time, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It just means it takes a lot to actually use it. Here's another one. There's a ton of information happening on the screen. So as a breath of fresh air, here's a standard Power BI report that we're used to seeing with way too much information on it. Now look at this one, right? Opinion, quality, sales, crisis. 4 things, right? It is super easy to intake. It's understandable. It's the threshold for cognitive processing is low. Now, obviously, depending on the users that you need, maybe they need more information on this. But the point is that when you look at something like the documents that we saw, and then you look at the documents now, and now think about the Microsoft video that we saw earlier and about how they were meeting a person, where they were at while they were in the process of doing something. And they needed to get that user interface to somebody who was looking at a wall or who was sitting at a table and had the chance to quickly glance at what they were doing. And now you look at something like this and it starts to make a little bit more sense, right? If you can limit the amount of UI in an application because you know the person and you know what they're after, you get successful interfaces. Here's a Power Apps document. I grabbed this right off of the Microsoft website, but you can see there's a lot of stuff going on here. In this case, this isn't to say that this interface is wrong, right? I mean, maybe the user personas or the user groups that were documented needed to fit all of this in one interface, and that's what they needed to do. But the point is that there is a lot of stuff going on. What's the ROI of having to train somebody how to use an application? And so the reason that I have this example on screen and a few of the other ones here in a second is think about when we talked about the customer experience bubble inside of the larger experience of a brand. And now you think about this interface and think about the communication points, the touch points inside of that larger brand experience. And now you think about an application like this where maybe there's a lot of training that has to go in to make this application successful. And now you think about where UX fit into that larger ecosystem. An application like this, because it has power users involved and their specifics, the idea that a lot is running on this one application to be successful in that entire ecosystem. And so when you think of things like this, there's a lot riding on an application that has a lot of information in it to be successful. Whereas maybe if it was a few applications within that ecosystem, each one of those could be, maybe they could be a lighter footprint. Maybe the application could be smaller, but more pointed towards that human using the technology. Okay, the next one is, here we have some Power Apps examples taken right from templates. And the left-hand side is to show that in some cases, what we're actually talking about is really hard to do if you're just looking at it from an application level. An example, let's say that you were trying to strip out UI out of the calendar interface on the left-hand side. Well, you've got a drop down to maybe select a calendar. You've got the calendar itself. You've got the selection of the 20th, and then you've got the listing of the things happening on the 20th. And now you think about it, well, what could I cut out of this UI that would make it more successful? And the point is that you can't, right? This this UI pattern is slimmed down as it could possibly get. And so now the question is, should you be doing it if you can't cut it down to be smaller, more compact, less cognitive processing, or maybe maybe there's no way to do it. And when it comes down to it, maybe the screen size is just too small. Maybe understanding what persona group needs to use the application on a larger screen size. Maybe something like this needs to be bigger. Fitz law. So Power Apps, examples of Power Apps. I'm cruising here. It's 12:46. This next example, I have to give all the credit to Geetha Sivo Salam in this case. I got this from her website, and the next slide over has a link to her site. But this is Power Apps again, right? So you think about everything we just talked about, and you think about what Geetha is presenting here on screen. How many options? 4. There's 4 options on screen, and that's it. There's some ancillary things like the gear in the top right corner, but the point is that I can scan this Power App, extract out what I need. Chances are I probably don't even have to train someone else on how to use this application. It's that simple and straightforward. The question is, how did Geetha design this? And the point is that she's able to take the personas that she gathered and the journey that they have and the needs that persona group had for the app that she built, and said, you know what, they only need to do 4 things, and this is what I'm going to give them. And so she put those 4, again, speaking for Geetha, maybe she never went through this, but you get the idea though, is that her persona group for this application had 4 needs that they were trying to address. Click into it. Here's the next page, and her link is at the bottom. But you can kind of see, super straightforward, super simple, easy to use, and she's able to do this because she understands the end users of her application enough so that she can slim it down to just give them the 4 things that they absolutely needed that were essential. So we go back to the human-centered design, human-centered process idea. One of the reasons why Power Apps, Power Platform is so powerful, no pun intended, is because if you look at this section right here of content, generally the idea of doing a prototype, Microsoft has given us a way to rapidly build things quickly. And so you could imagine if you have all of the content over here and you understand who it is that you're talking about and you understand what they need in your application to build a prototype. When we hear of the app in a day mentality, the idea is that we're rapidly building a prototype, a POC, a proof of concept, so that we can validate what it is that we've heard from our users. So in this context, if you're trying to build a POC and you don't understand what this stuff is, rethink your process, because a POC, if the POC is meant to help generate who it is that we're talking about, that's in some cases a recipe for disaster. A prototype is supposed to prove out what you know about the content and the research that you have so that you can prove out if it's right. And then the idea is going from prototype to an MVP is a conversion of what you learned from your prototype, right? We have this research, this is informing our prototype, and now we're about to build. We found out that that prototype either worked or it didn't work. These are the things that we need to fix, and now I'm going to build my MVP, my go-to-market application. So think about human-centered design. It gives you a way to link people with your brand, products, and services. So that was my whirlwind. It is 12:50. I think I've talked like a used car salesman. But and now we get to end this on questions. And,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that was great, Damon. Thank you so much.
Do you want me to drop screen share now, or do you want me to just keep this on screen for questions and answers?
Sure, we can keep that for now, and then we can pull something in as soon as we're ready. As far as questions and answers, I didn't see anything come through in the chat just yet. If anybody has any questions, or if you guys are holding on to a gem that you'd like to share a story, feel free to type that out as well. That's always helpful to bring more context, especially from the audience, as they run into things like this too. You did a great job pulling in, a ton of different, pieces of, deliverable in such a short amount of time.
Need a drink of water here. It's sped.
You earned it. I mean, yeah, that was a lot of great information in such a short amount of time. So thank you, Damon, for doing that. As we see things come through, we can bring those up. Some of the questions that I had is, I think that when I saw the board, one of the things that really caught my eye was the sticky notes. I think that is one of the most interesting ways and forms of gathering information, and one that I didn't necessarily see value in, and it looks kind of scattered and kind of chaotic when you look at it until you try something like that. I guess one of the questions that I would bring up for that specific scenario, when you try that, is there a virtual way to try that now that we can't really?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good question. So one of the tools that we use, it's relatively cheap depending on the model that you use, but there are a few tools that you can use. So we use Mural, mural.co, and that you can invite people to it. You can invite visitors to it. The idea that what you're seeing is a virtual board. Someone clicks in it, they can add a post-it note, you can turn it. The only thing that it's not doing is there's no algorithm to make the post-it notes fall off the board. The virtual post-it, which they should add some form of realism, so if it stays up there too long, it like flutters down. But Microsoft Whiteboard is a great tool, and it's free. So the idea that you could start using this model of engagement with users, with stakeholders tomorrow. So this is another area where you hear this, you can take this immediately back to your businesses and immediately start getting engagement through this. It's free.
Yeah.
And you can invite people to it. I think one of the benefits of Microsoft Whiteboard is, everybody always talks about usability, right? Like it must be easy to use, but that's a relative term, right? And so one of the great things about MS Whiteboard is that the tools that are in MS Whiteboard are the same tools that are in OneNote, are the same tools that are in PowerPoint, are in the same tools that are in, if you hit the draw button in Word. So when you think of someone saying, I want this to be easy to use, if they're using the Office suite, they know how to use Microsoft Whiteboard.
Okay.
So pretty cool.
Awesome. Looks like we had a question that came through. Any good books on these topics? So some of the things that you had mentioned, I'm sure that you get the number of books that you have on something like this. Any favorites?
There are definitely a few super good favorites. Let's see here. Really good. Hang on. Really good book. Let's see if this will do it. This is The Service Design by Andy Polane and Lavaris Lovell and Ben Reason. Super good book. And then this is another good one. This is The User's Journey. We're going to get that one to come in.
Yeah, it's always a battle. It's too smart.
Well, anyways, this one is by Donna Lickow, and she is fantastic, by Rosen Publishing. So, yeah, good books.
Awesome. Donald, hopefully you caught that. If you didn't, this YouTube is recorded and will be posted on our channel, and we'll be able to share that out later, and we can listen to that a couple times to pull that out. So that's good. Thank you, Damon, for sharing that. Any other questions that are out there, feel free to post in. Otherwise, I'll take the screen here and I will do some wrap up items.
All right. Drop screen share.
Thank you, Damon.
You bet.
Awesome. Gonna share my screen now. Always like 10 clicks away. All right, I think you guys can see. One thing that we wanted to share is that we put out the Power BI version control solution that's out there. Steve, I know that you're very passionate about this. From a process perspective, I'm very passionate about this from the low code, no code side of things. This is something that we've worked together on really hard to get it into this place. So it's very exciting to have this out and that it's finally out. It's in beta, and we're looking for feedback. So everybody, if you can, anybody that's on this call, if you're looking to, get into the Power App side of things, if you already have Power BI reports, this is a way that you can help control the version history and create a process at your organization. So this just helps draw that out, and it's in the low code, no code, not using any of the premium features. So you can implement this today at no cost, and it's a free solution that's out there in the community right now. Feel free to visit the powerbi.tips link there, and then it'll be it's right there in the feed, so you'll be able to see that right away. Anything you want to add, Steve?
Yeah, no, definitely head over Power BI tips. Please leave us some feedback. It's still in beta, as Anthony was saying. There's loads more functionality coming, so we're just testing out kind of the core usability here. So love for you to test it out. Yeah, definitely getting version control for Power BI files all in the Power Platform solution. So
awesome, thank you. So moving on, so the upcoming events that are happening, there's there's always a bag of tricks here at the end with a lot of fun. 2 days from now, or 3 days from now, we will be doing our second happy hour, which is our February version of that. Come with questions, answers, thoughts, experiences, all that good stuff, and we're looking to have another good discussion on the Power Platform. So we did this last month, turned out really well. We had a good number of people that came, and lots of good feedback and questions, and just people that were coming to to help out with drawing in more of an understanding of the Power Platform. So really excited to have that coming up again this week at the end here. Also, then in March we have about March 22nd is the day. I mean, it's feels like a good day, so we're looking forward to the next user group meeting there, and then also on March 25th we'll have the happy hour. So those are our next dates. We're going to get out some LinkedIn events post this event here, and let's get this YouTube recording up there as well. So we'll certainly you'll see us in the LinkedIn event as posting a couple of these things as they get posted out there on the interwebs. So looking forward to having you guys back. User group updates, nothing major right now. We're still in process of completely joining our group with powerbi.tips. It's not something that's done in a day, but we're certainly getting there. There's a lot of great things to come. Outside of that, Microsoft is having their first Ignite event of this year, which is happening March 2nd through the 4th. So again, sessions are open now, and last time we talked, sessions were not open. You were just able to sign up. So now you can sign up for the actual sessions. So get out there, sign up for the sessions, attend that. A lot of great features are going to be showcased and exposed during that. So very exciting. And without further ado, thank you everybody for coming today, and we look forward to having you on the next meetings. Thank you guys. Thanks, Damon.
Thanks everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thanks everyone. Thank you.